Good morning, the peoples. I'm Brick Road. This is my Think Positive mug filled with strawberry lemonade because I'm out of tea. I'm not out of tea, that's a lie. I'm out of honey to put in my tea. I'm not going to make tea with no honey. I'm not a barbarian. And this is my Mega Minx because I just thought there needed to be something in the frame when the stream went live. I'm just going to set this to the side after I'm done talking here. So I put up a video last week, some life hacks for DMs on how to design some encounters. And the first piece of advice I gave was just read the book forehead. And thinking about it over the course of the week, I kind of realized that's not very useful. Like, yeah, telling people to read the books is not very useful advice. I think it's commonly needed advice. I'm always surprised by how many people try to run tabletop games without reading the books. But my advice was like, have the book follow you around the house, read it cover to cover, but then keep reading it, like flip through it every now and then. Make yourself read the parts of it you don't think you'll use, like really understand what's in the book and let it become part of your workflow. That was really the advice, and that's really what helped me with encounter design. But I realized that just telling people just read the books doesn't really come across as very useful advice. I'm going to try to do something more useful today. Because we spent the past month or so, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks ago, we started playing a game called Household on this channel. It's archived. You can go watch it if you want. But I just realized that this is not configured correctly. There we go. I need my little plug bar down there so you guys can know to follow me on Blue Sky and Twitch, even though I haven't used Twitch in like 2 years. When was the last time I used Twitch? I don't even remember. And I don't even have like super chats enabled on this channel, so I don't know. Why is it hollering at me about bitrate? Lower than the recommended bitrate? I'm not dropping frames, YouTube. Chill out. Anyway, it's not going to be that video intensive. So even if the video is stuttering or whatever and you can only hear the sound of my voice, you'll be fine. Anyway, I ran Household, and we didn't really like the dice system. We talked a lot about the problems with the dice system that we had. And one of my players was like, they put out a 5e supplement for Household, so you could run the setting of Household in 5e. And I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I might grab that book someday. But it got me thinking, like, what other third-party books are available for 5e? Because I had never really looked into it. I'm a homebrew guy, so I kind of make my own stuff. And I use the officially published material, the adventure paths, the campaign settings, to supplement my homebrew stuff. And when I run straight out of a campaign setting, like I'm doing now, we just started running Strixhaven, but I like homebrewed tons of it. I changed a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm a homebrew guy at heart. I like world building, and I write fiction. I'm trying to query my novels. And so yeah, I'd never really looked into like what other settings are out there for 5e, because I've bought licensed settings in the past. The best one I think I own, it's very, very old now, was an old... published under the OGL from 3rd edition, the Game of Thrones role-playing game, which is excellent. I'd love to play that again someday if I didn't have to use those rules, like a 5e upgrade of it. And I think they've taken a couple more swings at making a Game of Thrones tabletop game that didn't go as well. I also have one for Serenity, if you remember Serenity from back in the day, the Firefly series. I've got that book, and it's got maybe my favorite damage roll of all time is in the Serenity role-playing game. It says if you get sucked out into space, just take everybody's dice on the table and drop all of them at once, and that's how much damage you take. It's space. You're dead. And of course, I have the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic storytelling game. But I've never played it because all my peoples are too cowardly to be ponies. But in general, I don't like using the licensed like IP games. For two reasons. One, because I'm not into any fandoms, really. That's very few, like, pre-existing fantasy or sci-fi worlds that I actually care about that much. Like, you would never catch me playing Star Wars. Like, my bros in my Meat Space group, they dig Star Wars. They play some Star Wars sometimes, and I'm like, I'm gonna bow out of that. Uh, we went through a Men in Black phase for a while back in the day. But the other reason is a lot of these licensed games, not all of them, but some of them, they're kind of slapdash. They're kind of like, oh, we're just going to put a game on the market to capitalize on this hot IP right now. And it's the same problem as like licensed video games. Sometimes a movie will come out and then the game will come out and the game is just like trying to capitalize on the movie and it's not very good. And a lot of the tabletop games will use an existing dice system that like their mechanic system is already struggling in the market and they're like trying to find like get people to buy their dice system, so they'll attach it to this licensed IP. Well, now you've got a kind of mediocre, like warmed over setting material paired with a dice system that's not terrific. That was my take with Serenity, as I recall, because that's a movie I really liked. That's a TV series I really liked. And the people who wrote the book clearly liked it too, but it's a very slim book. It's not a good world building book, and the dice system I recall is not that great. So I didn't look into 5e. What's out there for like 5e campaign settings, like, and then I saw this, and I had to buy this. So this is, my camera is so shaky. I went to and I just realized I left a ring on my desk. Because of I'm gonna put my lemonade over here. Actually, no, I'm gonna put my lemonade over here. That way, when I inevitably bang it with my elbow, I'm not gonna spill it all over my book. So this is the Lord of the Rings 5e role-playing game, and I wanted to get this book for, again, two reasons. First, I told you I'm not a big fan of like anything. I'm not really into a fandom, but Middle-earth is one of the things that I will go all in on. Westeros is the other. Those are like the two fantasy settings that I like inhabit with my brain. That's not true. There's a third because I'm writing my own novels, and I have to kind of inhabit that space as well. But also because it's it's a dice system I trust, right? It's 5e, and I know 5e, and I know it's a good dice system, and I know it works. So I haven't read the book yet, and I can't put the book to use because I just started running a Strixhaven campaign. So we're obviously not going to put like hobbits and Gandalfs inside of Strixhaven. I guess I could. I'm not going to read the book. Is what I'm saying. Is I'm not going to read through this book. But before I read a tabletop book, what I do is I just kind of do a flip through of it. I just go through it, skim a few pages. I go through it page by page to see what's in there, and usually that gives me enough context to then read the book cover to cover and not feel lost. So that's what I'm going to do today. Is we're going to start flipping through this book and see what's in there. And I'm going to try to make sure it's in the frame here. I've got a $20 webcam that I bought like 15 years ago now. And I bought this $20 webcam off Amazon. And I'm like, at the time I wasn't using a face cam on my streams. And I'm like, I'm just going to buy this $20 webcam and see if I like having my face on the screen. And then if I do, I will upgrade to an actually good webcam. And then I just never upgraded. I've just been using this $20 Amazon special or whatever it is for all that time. It's been more than a decade. I should probably at some point, if I invested in a second webcam, I could keep this one and then have my face on the corner of this screen, right? But usually I only use this view when I'm solving cubes, when I'm doing this kind of stuff. A couple times a year I like to solve cubes on stream. Anyway, we're going to read through this book today and just see what's in it. And I'm going to share my thoughts as we go. And so we have a nice map of Middle-earth here, of Eriador, it says. So it's not all of it's not the classic Middle-earth map, because Mordor is kind of cut off at the bottom here. Credits page. I don't recognize the writer. Based on the One Ring role-playing game. Okay. So the writer of this also wrote the One Ring role-playing game, which I haven't read. And the reason I didn't get into something like that was because, again, it's a dice system I don't trust. It's really hard for me to want to pivot away from a dice system that I trust and I know really well, even if it's a setting that I really, really liked. And I've never had the pool to run a Middle Earth role playing game, but I feel like if I did, I could always just adapt it to 5e or something else I know. This is a strange way to lay out the contents. I mean, I guess it works. I don't know that I would want my context laid out horizontally. So we got a prologue. We got new rules. Uh, so I guess this is going to be like addendums to the 5e rules to run the One Ring. Adventurers, I guess this will be player characters, rewards, and virtues. Okay. Adventuring and fellowship phases. Oh, I don't like phased-based role-playing games. I've tried a few in the past. I'm assuming what this means is like there's going to be phases where like the DM's in charge, and then phases where like the player's in charge, right? So adventuring would be like it's broken down to council and journey. So that's going to be like the standard you go adventuring phase, and then fellowship phase will be downtime in between for players to take charge. I tend to not like that kind of structure, but we'll see what we get here. The lore master, adventuring in Middle Earth. When, where, what, why, who. That'll be interesting to flip through. I'm assuming the lore master is the DM. That's what they're calling the DM. The shadow, this will be like a monster manual kind of thing. And then the world will be world building stuff. So the world's building stuff in a game like this, I mean, I would usually read it, but I probably wouldn't need it because if I'm buying a game that is in a pre-existing world, I tend to already have buy-in to that setting. And in my experience, this isn't enough to run a Middle Earth game if you don't already know Middle Earth. Does that make sense? And if you don't already know Middle Earth, you're probably not buying this book. I don't see anybody just picking this book up sight unseen. And that's true with kind of any... Like, we went through this Men in Black phase. I don't know, 20 years ago. More than that, maybe. But we played Men in Black. We play like a real game for 4 or 5 weeks, and we'll be like, all right, let's play Men in Black again. And we got it out of our systems, but like we never really bought into the Men in Black like extended universe. There wasn't a lot of setting material to work with. Although when I buy 5e setting campaign settings, my complaint is always that there's not enough stuff in them. I've been through the Eberron book, I've been through the Ravnica book. Their Ravenloft book was especially like I liked it. I liked what was in there, but I was starving for more because I know how much more there is to Ravenloft. And I've had people who know Eberron and who know Ravnica tell me, yeah, that's the problem with a lot of their setting books for 5th edition. So maybe this is just an indicative of the time. Like we only get, what do we get here? 30 some odd pages to describe the world of Eriador. And that's just not enough for Middle Earth. Like if you're a Tolkien head, you need like a lot more appendices. Oh, we have appendices. Patrons, landmarks, the Star of the Mist. Okay, I don't know what any of that really means. Well, patrons, those will be the people that like... Because Gandalf is listed as a patron. Like, you could think of Gandalf the Grey as being like an adventuring patron, right? Like, he sought out Thorin Oakenshield, and then he sought out Bilbo Baggins. All right, Chapter 1, Epilogue. The enemy still lacks one thing to give him strength and knowledge, to bend down all resistance, break the last defenses, and cover all the lands in a second darkness. He lacks the One Ring. We've got some hobbits marching through the Shire. Like this, I wouldn't read this page on my skim through. This is a letter from Gandalf, probably telling you how to open or how to approach your Middle Earth game. It's set in the time period between the events of The Hobbit and those told in Lord of the Rings. So this book only covers a very minimal amount of time. So you're talking about, like, Smaug is defeated, and Bilbo is returned to the Shire. The One Ring is hidden in his waistcoat pocket. One Ring for 5e. This converts the best-selling... okay, it did well. The One Ring role-playing game to 5e, bringing the world of J.R.R. Tolkien to players of the most popular set of rules for fantasy gaming. This is not a standalone game. To play the Lord of the Rings role-playing, you must be familiar with the rules for 5e. I am. I'm ready to go. So, but we're calling the DM the lore master and the characters player heroes. Oh, I like that. I like player heroes a lot. Uh, because I like fantasy hero games, right? Like I like when the players are heroes and they go on adventures and they're the good guys and they're fighting the bad guys. Like that's comfortable for me. Um, so I like calling them player heroes. It's kind of a signal that like, listen, you're not going to be playing like an evil character in this campaign. You're not going to be playing a bad guy. You're not going to be playing an assassin. You're not going to be playing a moody rogue, right? Uh, so it's setting the tone for the players up front. Your heroes, you better roll up heroes. Adventuring in the Third Age, you guys talk about the folk of Eriador. I'm assuming this will be the game's like XP for player races. The last 20 years or so have seen the resurgence of hope in the lands of the free peoples, and then its slow but steady decline. The world darkens once again. So we've got a timeline here. This is Gandalf, Thorin Oakenshield, 12 dwarves visit Bilbo the Hobbit in the Shire. We don't use Bilbo's surname here. We don't name drop Bag End. So Smaug is dead, and then Bilbo returns for peaceful. This is a timeline of events, and we're going to start the game in the year 2965. Rumors of turmoil and strife in the Wilderland become more and more common in this decade. And that's what we're going to be dealing with, I guess. More and more travelers from the east cross into the Westlands, bringing news of threats to the fragile peace between men, elves, and dwarves. This makes it sound like men, elves, and dwarves were fighting. Which I guess they kind of were at the Battle of Five Armies. Like, the elves and the dwarves all had grievances. But then they all teamed up to fight the goblins and the orcs, and... So here's Gandalf bursting into Bag End. Is it secret? Is it safe? Players use the rules presented in this volume to create adventurers hailing from the Lonelands of Eriador, a region steeped in old lore and thick with secrets. So it's describing the divide between player heroes and the lore master. For people who are brand new to role-playing games. Like, this page is in every single role-playing game book. It has to be, because if you've never played one before, you might buy the book thinking like all the players are the same, but they're not. One player is the lore master. And I like here, it describes the lore master explicitly as a player. The player who will take the mantle of lore master should be familiar with the entirety of this volume, but particular attention must be given to the content of Chapter 7. So it's calling the lore master a player, and I really like that. Because people forget a lot of times, players especially forget a lot of times that the DM at a D&D table is a player, is there to engage in the same storytelling and the same game mechanics as the players are. And a lot of players lose sight of this and think of the DM as like a fun machine that is supposed to deliver their good times to them without complaint. And that has led to a lot of DM burnout over the years. I've seen it 10,000 times. Where's my drink? Here it is. Oh, I really wish I had hot tea. Strawberry lemonade is delicious, but... So we've got the trolls. Okay, so we've got the hobbits are camping in the shadow of the stone trolls. It's Bilbo's trolls. Structure of the game. Here we go. This is an adventuring phase will last 2 or 3 sessions of play, followed by a fellowship phase, wrapping up what happened thus far in the adventure. Okay. The events of the adventuring phase lead the players to make certain choices during the following fellowship phase. The lore master will find it easy to tie the next adventuring phase into what happened during the previous fellowship phase. Are we doing like time jumps? Oh, here we go. Passage of time. Time passes at different rates in the game. One evening spent playing may detail a single day in the life of an adventurer or skim over a month or more of their career. Okay, that's pretty common in D&D. I'll do that quite a lot, actually. During adventuring phase sessions, gameplay is structured in shorter, focused scenes that require players to describe in detail what they do. So that's the standard D&D model. That's like the adventuring phase is some number of player actions in a row. Time passes more quickly during a fellowship phase when the lore master and the players adopt a broader approach to narration. So they're talking about stuff that happens off screen, weeks or months. And there's a special type of fellowship phase for Yule. Okay, cool. All right, so it's not like a DM phase and player phase. It's like it's like an adventure phase and a downtime phase. That's okay. I'm less apprehensive about the phases now. Uh, they're just codifying downtime, which is something that's not done well in 5th edition until Xanathar's came out and has like an explicit chapter about what players can do during downtime. And downtime is kind of structured as any action that the player is doing off screen, really. Combat is a necessity in a world where the shadow threatens to cover the land in darkness. Council comprises social interaction, in particular those occasions where the player heroes meet with the wise and the great of Middle Earth, which I would say in a Middle Earth setting should happen with some regularity. You should be meeting with the wise and the great. You should be like hanging out with Galadriel and Gandalf and all the rest. What is this? Special game mechanics for social interacting? Yeah. Okay, so we do have like council mechanics we're going to see. Then journey is an activity synonymous with adventuring in Middle Earth, traveling across vast, dangerous land. I have tried many different kinds of rules for like overland journeys, and in my experience, a lot of them fall flat. I almost always fall back on just kind of describing how long the journey takes and what they see, and then getting them to the destination. Once in a while, I will run like an old-fashioned hex crawl. Well, I'll just put a hex map out, and I'll just like have a random encounter table, and I'll just let them take care of the hex map, and we'll uncover more and more of it as we go. But we do have special mechanics for journeying, and we'll see how those go. So the company, that's going to be your adventuring party, I imagine. Yeah, players use the information presented in Chapter 3 to create their player heroes. Once all players have created their player heroes, they should take some time to introduce their adventurers to each other and determine the circumstances that brought them together. A group of player heroes is more than a band of roving mercenaries. That's true. During the adventuring phase, player heroes can spend 1 point of fellowship to gain advantage on an ability check. Ooh, is that going to be like a communal resource? Like a communal inspiration mechanic? Fellowship points. The starting fellowship score is equal to the number of player heroes in the group. That makes sense. The value can be augmented by the number of virtues and a bonus associated with the company's patron. Okay, so you're going to have a communal pool of fellowship points that the whole group can spend to gain advantage. Do I like that? I'd have to see it in action. Because one of two things will happen when we have communal resources like this. Sometimes you'll get a player that just uses them all. Like, oh, they're there to be used. Let's use them. The tragedy of the commons, right? And then the other thing that might happen is like the game will stop and the players will have like a discussion about the most efficient way to use these points. And then they'll use them like that. Like, oh, we need to use this point this way, then this point this way. And then you kind of lose some of the organic, like, in-the-moment decision-making that a player can have for their own character when you have a group of players making choices for the group on how to best allocate resources. That can go... I kind of have a communal resource in my games where I have communal blips that get given out at the end of each session. Players award themselves blips. They have a discussion as a group. But that happens after gameplay is already concluded. I wouldn't do something like that during gameplay. I'd have to see that in action. Fellowship points are fully refreshed at the end of each fellowship phase. So, okay, so you go on the adventure, you have some number of fellowship points, and once they're gone until the adventure's over, and you have a chance to collect yourself and have some downtime. So they're going to choose one of these patrons. Balin, son of Fundin. Bilbo Baggins is a patron. Oh, nice. His agenda is to recover lost lore and lost things. Círdan the Shipwright. Gandalf the Grey. Who's this? Who's Gilraine, daughter of Gilrain's folk? At the start of a journey. I don't know who this is. I don't know who Gilraine is. Lady Goldberry and Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil strikes me as a bad patron. So I think this page is showing the age of Middle Earth and how it's clashed against modern sensibilities because they clearly wanted to have some female patrons on this page, and there's not a lot of. Well, what about Galadriel? Why wouldn't Galadriel be a starting patron? You could go to the Lady of Lorien and get an adventure. Yeah, and I'm going to rescind that comment. I think there are enough female characters that could have populated this page just fine. I don't know who Gilrain is. Yeah, it says she's a champion in war. She doesn't give any fellowship points. She's not good of a patron. The way it says Gilrain's folk here, usually when I see that like worded like that, it makes me think dwarves, like Durin's folk, right? I don't think elves would use that kind of nomenclature. So that makes me think that Gilrain is an elf, or is a dwarf rather. And if she is, she'd be like the first female dwarf in the Legendarium. I don't think there are any female dwarves anywhere in Tolkien's work. So okay, you pick a patron. Yeah, I just don't see Tom Bombadil as a very good patron. It says here his agenda is protect the land, find and preserve what was buried. I don't think Tom Bombadil is like asking adventurers for help to protect his land. I don't know. Because they have a discussion in Fellowship of the Ring. They have a long discussion about like, can we count on Tom Bombadil like as an ally in this quest? And they're like, no, he doesn't know what's going on. All right, so Gandalf is lecturing Bilbo about the ring. The safe haven of the company is a location that works as the starting base of operations for the group. So that's Bag End or Lorien or Rivendell or wherever you're setting out from. This is like a prologue thing, like how like explain how the company came together. I usually skip prologues in games. I don't like backstory on players. In general, I like players to come to my table with like no backstory or very little backstory, or just keep your backstory to yourself. Like I'm not that interested. I'm more interested in what happens once we get to the table, and that runs contrary to a lot of advice given to new DMs. I see it, a lot of people advising new DMs like make sure to incorporate your player backstories into your game to make them feel special. And I mean, I don't want to. I'm a writer and a world builder and a home brewer. Like I want to write my own stuff. I want my story to be there. My players are going to inform it and they're going to add their own takes to it and they're going to alter the direction of it a great deal just by their words and their actions in the game. But I think that's really fun when their actions direct the story. I think it's less fun when something they wrote before we started playing directs the story. So I always tell my players like write as much backstory as you want, but I'm not gonna read it. And if you want something in your backstory to like come into play in the game, like it's your job to get it to the table. Like it's your job to introduce it. It's your job to take actions in that direction. Like you're playing your character. Don't put your character's story on me, right? It's your job to do that. So I usually skip prologues like this in games. We got new skills for. Oh, we should look at the character sheet. I bet it's in the back. We'll look at it at the end. Explore. Player heroes rely on this when they move through an unfamiliar area of the wild. Okay. So this sounds like a replacement for like survival. This just sounds like I would call. Oh no, what they've done here is they've taken the survival skill, they've split it up. There's an explore action, there's a hunting action. So we have a skill for hunting and like tracking, I imagine. Yeah, okay. Hunting wild game or follow tracks to identify. So they've taken the survival skill and split it up. And I think they do that because that does make a lot of sense to me in Middle Earth. Because Middle Earth is a low magic setting where like your character's knowledge and skills can be a lot more granular. So where these kind of things make sense to combine in a game like Dungeons and Dragons, in a Middle Earth setting, I think it makes sense to split these up. Old lore is an intelligence check to recall obscure information from bygone days. So that's different. That's distinct from history. Like you'd make a history check to recall like the line of the stewards of Gondor, right? And then you make an old lore check to learn about like the sinking of Numenor. Is that the distinction we're making here? There's a riddle skill. The riddle game is a custom among many creatures, including quite a few that would be classified as wicked if they did not respect the ancient rules. So, question: did Bilbo Baggins succeed his riddle check to come up with what's in my pocket? Is that what we're saying here? Travel is a skill. That's interesting. Wherever the company chooses to go, it will be a long and weary way before they get there. A successful travel check may let a player or hero estimate the length of a journey, read a map, and even evaluate. So if in a game where journey is going to be like a big mechanic, if we're going to spend a lot of time going from place to place, that makes sense too. Magical success. I'm very interested in how magic is going to work in this setting, because you can't have like wizards, sorcerers, and warlocks in Middle Earth. Oh, we're not talking about magic here. We're talking about, well, yeah, we are. Enchanted artifacts like magic rings and cloaks, ancient spells, uncanny powers can allow a player hero to exceed the possibilities of mere mortals. Okay, so this is talking about Frodo and Sam's elven cloaks, which hid them from sight. Talking about, obviously, Bilbo's ring gave him invisibility. And then we have, okay, examples of magic success. So you need some kind of magic impacting you to know what a magical success is. It gives an example here. Strength check. Climb a sheer wall of rock without tools or jump across a chasm 20 feet wide in full gear. But to do that, you would need some magical assistance. You would need like old magic boots or something that would give you like leaping, or like magic gloves to help you climb or something. I'm just skimming here to see if I can find an example from the books I can kind of glom onto. Insight. Read the surface thoughts of a creature or learn what is most on its mind at the moment. That would be interesting, having like a magic ring that could do that. A ring that gives people dark vision. We do have one example for each skill here, which is nice. Okay. Here it is, stealth. Hide even in plain sight or walk without sound or footfall. So I'm picturing this like, okay, Frodo and Sam have their elven cloaks, and that means they can achieve a magical success on stealth checks. Because they have an artifact capable of unlocking a magical success. They get an automatic success regardless of the DC and ignoring conditions. During contests, they automatically win the contest. This makes a lot of sense to me. Frodo and Sam are sneaking through Mordor. They've got their elven cloaks, which makes them difficult to spot. So as long as they're being sneaky, as long as they're making stealth checks, they automatically can hide from the sight of orcs, unless the orcs have some way to see them. Sauron certainly has a way to see them. His eye is lidless. But Sauron's attention is drawn elsewhere. So their magical cloaks enable them to get through Mordor unseen. Okay, I'm understanding this a little better now. And if you need to know the exact result, it counts as having rolled a 20 on the d20. Got it. And it's saying that you can also get magical successes by using magical tools, unlike tool proficiencies and things. All right. We've got encumbrance rules. We've got resting rules. Okay, a variant of the standard 5e rules for rests. Okay, you can benefit from long rests exclusively in sheltered and safe refuges. I actually use that at my table for 5e. I tell my players you need comfort and safety in order to take a long rest. And I'm very, very cagey about if they can take a long rest in any kind of wilderness or dungeon environment. Like, they'll ask me, can we take a long rest? And I'll be like, boy, I don't know. Guess we'll see. So I like this rule. I like the idea that in order to take a long rest, you have to let your guard down. This is explicitly saying you can't do it in the wilderness or in dungeons. In my 5e games, I will sometimes allow a long rest in those cases, as long as they like have a watch set up, right? And usually that entails one or two people not participating in the long rest, if that makes sense. A short rest during a journey must be at least 8 hours long. These are similar to the alternate resting rules in the DMG. So normally a short rest is 1 hour, a long rest is 8 hours. This is saying a short rest is 8 hours. So a short rest is a night's sleep, and a long rest is only possible in your safe haven, and is probably some number of days or weeks. Using the One Rings dice. I'm just going to skip this entirely because... Yeah, we don't need any of this because we would be using the D20. Rewards and virtues. Virtues are unique abilities and special talents. Are we talking about feats? Are virtues feats? They select a new virtue when a player hero reaches certain levels in a calling. Oh, we got all kinds of nomenclature. What's a calling? Rewards are pieces of war gear of superior craftsmanship, granted to a player hero as an award for their deeds when they reach certain levels. So you can picture this as like Bilbo gaining a level in Burglar and finding Sting. That would be like a reward. Shadow and corruption. This is the enemy is trying to corrupt you. They can resist sources of shadow by making an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw. Okay. Attempting or performing misdeeds provokes an automatic shadow gain instead. Ooh. As such actions prove that a hero is falling for the evil ways of the enemy. This is getting into alignment territory now, which is kind of my wheelhouse. There's a big conversation about, does D&D still need alignment in this day and age? Do we still need to have players codified into law, chaos, good, and evil? And I think the conversation can go both ways, because I can see wanting to run a fantasy adventure game in a world without alignments, where players don't have to define themselves in that way. And I also see the argument for, well, in a fantasy world, good and evil aren't just like arbitrary relative descriptors of your behaviors. They are like cosmic forces, like they're physical, tangible things that exist. And in Middle Earth, that is absolutely and explicitly the case. Like good and evil are baked into this setting in a way that I think sidesteps a lot of conversations I've seen about alignment. There is an enemy. The enemy is of the shadow. The shadow is evil. If you do evil things, it's because the enemy has corrupted you. And if you're thinking like, not necessarily, my guy can do evil things and not necessarily be corrupted by any shadow. Well, no. In Middle Earth, the enemy seeks out those who are doing evil things and corrupts them. That's how it works. That's how it worked through the entire set of novels. And arguing against that kind of corruption in favor of like not having an alignment type system, which is what this kind of sounds like a little bit, is really an argument that you don't want to be playing a game in Middle Earth. You don't want a game of cosmic good and evil, which is fine. We need both kinds of games in the world. But in Middle Earth, I don't see... you have to have cosmic good and evil. That's the whole... I don't want to get into a whole like TED talk about like Tolkien's influences and things. I could spend 2 hours talking about that. I'm not going to. We're going to get back to the book. This actually doesn't sound like alignment to me. This sounds more like powers checks in Ravenloft, where when you do evil things, you make a check. In this case, you're going to make an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw. And if you fail in Ravenloft, the land reaches out and begins corrupting you. And that absolutely is thematically on point for a Middle Earth game. All right, so we've got adventurers here. We've got Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli searching for the hobbits out in the wilds. Your characters. Oh, here we go. Here's the list of races. You can play a Barding, the Dwarves of Durin's folk, Elves of Linden, Hobbits of the Shire, Men of Bree, Rangers of the North. So you've got 6 options for. We're not calling them races, though, surely. What are we calling them? Just free peoples, brave nations. We're not calling them anything in particular. We're just, they're a categorization. Okay. Heroic culture. Oh, cultures. Okay, we're calling them cultures. Big font printed right on the book, Bricker. Just look at the next page. You'll see it. Typical names. I wouldn't need this because I could just use fantasynamegenerator.com. Cultural traits, backgrounds. Ugh, my nose is running. I hope I'm not getting a cold. You got rules for customizing a background in case you want to be like an atypical dwarf or something, I guess. So I was wondering about this. I was like, okay, we're just going to have men, elves, dwarves, and hobbits. And no, we've got 3 flavors of men, and then elves, dwarves, and hobbits. Oh, here we go. Languages. Different languages shouldn't get in the way of fun. Let me think about this. While Tolkien used the linguistic differences among the various realms of Middle-earth to good narrative effect, he also found it simpler to avoid steep cultural barriers and gave most ethnic groups, even orcs and other more fantastical creatures like Ents, at least a passing knowledge of what constituted a linguis franca, the so-called common speech, or Westron. Yeah, okay, that checks out. A part of me was like, don't be dismissive of the languages of Middle-earth just because you found it hard to put into your role-playing game. Like, Tolkien was a linguist first and foremost. But no, this makes a good argument for... And they're right, like the elves and the orcs, they all spoke a common tongue. Alright, so we've got Bardings. They're the Northmen. He was a descendant of the long line of Girion, Lord of the Dale, whose wife and child had escaped down the running river from a ruin long ago. So this is a descriptor of like a character who's rolled up into Bardings. Strength of charisma by 1, adventuring age 18 to 40. You better retire at 41. I'd be retired if I was a barding adventurer. Bardings are medium. Okay. Proficiency with the great bow. None of these middling bows. You gain 1 cultural virtue of your choice. We got backgrounds here. Okay, so about our backgrounds, it says players choosing a background receive a brief personal history, 2 skill proficiencies, a tool proficiency. I like this. I like calling them skill proficiencies and tool proficiencies. I kind of hate how 5e says, okay, there's skills and then there's tool proficiencies and vehicle proficiencies. Call them all proficiencies so players know they're all the same things. How many players have I had over the years that are like, what's the difference between a skill and a proficiency? It says I've got a proficiency in a musical instrument. Where's my list of musical instruments that I can pick my proficiency from? This is what all of my players sound like in my head. All right, so... And then backgrounds for barding characters. Love that. Oh, we've got a bunch of backgrounds here. So why does it say players choosing a background? Would not all players choose a background? Only the road would travelers be found. Most often dwarves, hurrying along on business of their own, and with no help and few words to spare for strangers. I'm a dwarf guy through and through. I'm a Gimli stan. Sorry, not sorry. I love me some dwarves. I think it's very, very funny that they give all of these sample female dwarf names. There are no female dwarves in the Legendarium. I think Gimli or Balin, I forget which one, insist that there are female dwarves, and they must be female dwarves because they procreate. But I'm wondering if it mentions here. So there's a website that I use called fantasynamegenerators.com where you generate names for fantasy games, and it has like a bunch of settings, and one of the settings it has is you can generate Tolkien themed names, and on the dwarf page you can generate male or female names, and the female name, the website creator has a little blurb like, yeah, didn't know what to do here. Like Tolkien doesn't give any like examples of female dwarf names, so we just kind of had to
I don't know by what logic did they determine that female and male names sounded different for dwarves. And then, okay, your background will determine like kind of where you're from. No, these are like sub races of dwarves: dwarves of Erebor, of the Blue Mountains, the Iron Hills, and the Wandering Dwarf. And then backgrounds are different. Okay, so dwarves are set. Elves. This all checks out. You're immune to aging and disease. Elves don't need to sleep. But in this game, you're playing an elf of Linden. So you're not playing an elf of Lorien. You're not playing an elf of the Greenwood. So in this game, you're only playing one kind of elf. Hobbits of the Shire. Your size is small because you're a hobbitses. Sample family names. Baggins. Yep, that's definitely a hobbit family name. I feel like if I was running this game and one of my players rolled up a Baggins, I'd be like, you're going back to the drawing board, buddy. Okay, so we got 3 sub-races of hobbits. You're a witty, gentle hobbit. I love it. This works as both like a descriptive term for what a player is. I would also say this works as like a character name. Hello, I'm witty, gentle hobbit. Men of Bree. Okay, so these are the men who live kind of next door to the Shire. Forest Dweller, Gate Warden. This is fine. And Rangers of the North, so you can play the Dunedain. The Bree folk call them Rangers and knew nothing of their origin. Adventuring age 20 to 50, so you're not a ranger when you're a kid, and you don't have to retire until you're 50. So I would still have 8 years to go if I was a ranger. This is interesting though, because I expected ranger to be a class and be very expanded upon in this game. I think that's what I was expecting. Hunter of Orcs, love it. Callings. Oh, are these classes? Okay, so callings are classes. All calling write-ups include a shadow path, a description outlining the individual fate if the character fails to resist the shadow's influence. All right. So in this game, you can be a captain, a champion. Wait, these are out of alphabetical order. Did we skip burglar? Tell me you didn't skip the burglar class. Come on. Everybody's going to want to play a hobbit burglar. Ah. The whole thief class in Dungeons and Dragons is based on Bilbo being a burglar. All right, so you can't be a burglar in Lord of the Rings role-playing for 5e, but you can be a captain, a champion, a messenger, a scholar, a treasure hunter, or a warden. Oh, are we calling burglars treasure hunters? Is Lord of the Rings woke now? Ah. All right, so let's see. Captain, a valiant fighter and leader of others. So you're like a fighter, I guess. A champion is a fierce warrior skilled with a variety of weapons and armor. So that could be like a fighter or a barbarian. A messenger is an experienced traveler and advisor carrying tidings to distant lands. I can't think of a good analog in D&D for messenger. The scholar is a master of learning. Okay. Treasure hunter is a cunning adventurer who seeks to recover what is lost. So that's your burglar. Bilbo was a treasure hunter. Well, wonder what level Bilbo was by the time he got to the Lonely Mountain. And a warden is a protector of the weak who blends martial prowess and knowledge of the land. So this will be your ranger here. Like I expect Aragorn was probably a captain and a warden, actually. All right. We're only going up to 10th level. So as a captain, you're getting a D10 hit die, armor, shield, simple weapons, etc. You start with ringmail, hide. This looks very 5e to me. This all looks just fine. You take a Craft or virtue at 2nd level. You take a virtue at 4th. Oh, we don't have ASIs here. You still get extra attack at 5th level. So we're getting several virtues. So there'll be a list of captain virtues that you select from. So you're kind of, instead of having a subclass like in 5e, you're going to kind of modularly build out of a set of virtues, kind of like the warlock do. At 2nd level, and again at 4th, 6th, 8th, and 10th, you take a common or cultural virtue of your choice. Oh, so virtues are feats. Okay. And then there's going to be a list of feats. Here's the fighting styles. Great weapon fighting is just built into a fighting style. Is it the same? You treat any roll of 4 or less on a damage die as a 5. Okay. Oh no, here's the titles. Yeah. 3rd level, you get a captain title. So we do have subclasses. You can be a chieftain, a thane. Oh, that's it. Chieftain or thane. All right. Champion. You deem that there is but one way to oppose the return of the shadow, and that is to conquer it by strength of arms. Does it? I feel like it would be helpful if they told us what characters in the Legendarium had these callings. Maybe they will later in the book, but I feel like a blurb here, like Aragorn was a 7th level captain when he met with Gandalf at the Wandering Pony, right? That would not go amiss. Okay, we have champion ways. So here we have got Indomitable. So it looks like this is less a barbarian. It looks like we've kind of. It looks like a champion fighter to me, honestly. It looks like we've got 2 different flavors of just fighter, which is fine. We're still only getting a D10 per level, which is fighter hit die. You got an extra attack, Indomitable. You still pick a fighting style. So this is a different kind of fighter. Here we go. Sharpshooter is one. So Bard was a champion. Cool. And this guy's a champion. Which dwarf is this? There's 400,000 dwarves, and they all look exactly like this. Messenger. Elrond is sending elves, and they will get in touch with the rangers and maybe Thranduil's folk in the Mirkwood. Oh. Is this saying here? He stood up and seemed suddenly to grow taller, and his eyes gleamed a light, keen and commanding. I believe that was a description of Aragorn from the books. They should name drop him so we know for sure. Yeah, war must be while we defend our lives against a destroyer who would devour all. Like they should source this quote. Tell us what character said that. Listen, I'm a Tolkien boy, but I don't have the books memorized. I'd have to go to the wiki to figure out who said that. But if we're saying Elrond is a messenger, I'm okay with that. That works for me. So we're getting a D8. Saves their dex and charisma. Skills, choose 4. These are all kind of knowledge skills. Start with a short sword or a sword. Or quiver of arrows. Folklore. You possess some knowledge of the many traditional customs, belief, and stories. Whenever you make an intelligence check related to one of these topics, you're considered proficient in the old lore skill and add double your... So we've got expertise on old lore. So are we kind of like a partial bard here? No, because we've got unarmored defense. We've got sneak attack. We're like a weird like bard, rogue, monk hybrid. Yeah, this is a bard thing here. You add half your proficiency bonus rounded down to any. This is the jack of all trades proficient or class feature here. You get uncanny dodge. So yeah, we're just kind of melding in a bunch of stuff together to make this new class. I'm gonna step away for 1 minute. I'll be right back. All right, that wasn't even 1 minute. That was fine. One of my dogs was outside of the room looking at me expectantly. And then our paths are Counselor. Bonus proficiencies, Words of Guard and Guiding. Okay, so like Elrond would be a messenger, right? Or you could be a herald. You believe that advice alone cannot stop the enemy. This almost sounds like Gandalf to me. But Gandalf should be above anything that a player hero could be in this game. Like, you should not be able to roll up Gandalf. You get extra attack at 7th level. Okay, so we're like in Barg Rogue territory here. We've smushed Barg and Rogue together. Scholar. Speak no secrets. Here is a scholar in the ancient tongue. Light armor, simple weapons, a healer's kit. Yeah, we've got a shadow path. Like, if you start to be corrupted, it's going to change your calling a bit. Craft slots. Ooh, okay, what are we doing here? Craft slots are here. Or is it so this is gonna be like spells, kind of? To use one of your crafts, you must expend a craft slot. You regain all expended slots when you finish a short or long rest. So you get a night's sleep, you get all your slots back. We're getting expertise. We're getting unarmored. Unarmored defense is just kind of baked into several classes. In 5e, it's a monk thing specifically. And I guess what this is modeling is like hobbits never wore armor, but they sure were hard to hit. Them hobbits, they got around. Gardener's not a calling. You can't be an expert gardener. So your healer here. Is this a craft? Your craft is determined by your tradition. The 3rd level, you gain the Lore Master class feature, but the Lore Master is the DM. You can't reuse that word. That's a key word. You can't use the same word in 2 different places. So what are crafts? That's what I'm looking for. You know a craft of your choice from the crafts lists at the end of the chapter. Okay, we'll see them at the end of the chapter. Treasure hunters. Okay, we get sneak attack. We get cunning action. We get uncanny dodge. So we're like in pure rogue terror. Reliable talent at level, if you go all the way to 10. Quiet-footed. You could, oh, here's a burglar. There it is. All right, I'm happy now. You could be a burglar. You could be a spy. I like it. Okay, so burglar. Yours are the venerable arts of pickpocketing, lockpicking, and otherwise getting hold of the possessions of others and accessing protected areas. You're clever-handed, you're a tree climber, and you're quiet-footed. Love it. Does this mean Bilbo had sneak attack? Yo, was Bilbo going around backstabbing goblins? He could. He was invisible for half the story. Or you could be a warden. Travelers scowl at us, and countrymen give us scornful names. All right, so what are we if you're a warden? In the age of the world, when shadows grow deeper in every passing year, you've sworn to defend all who cannot defend themselves. This is another flavor of fighter. Often your choice forces you to forsake civilized areas, or we're more of a ranger here. Self-doubt is often the way that the shadow chooses to reach the heart of those who oppose it. You get a fighting style. You get a warden oath. Are we paladins? Extra attack at 5th level. Long stride. Okay, I like this. This is definitely Aragorn. Your movement speed goes up because he's Strider, right? Aragorn sounds like a forayer. You patrol the land, ceaselessly seeking to ambush the servants of the enemy, for they are found in many places, not in Mordor only. Or you're a hunter. You've chosen to prey upon the enemies of the free peoples, as a hunter relentlessly seeks a dangerous quarry. Those almost sound like the same thing. What do we... Ambusher, harrier, hunter's prey. You be foe hammer, goblin cleaver, or troll killer. This is against small, medium, large creatures? No. We're definitely in ranger territory if you go here, because this sounds like you're getting advantages based on enemy type, which is to me, speaks Ranger in 5th edition. Yeah, here's a quote from Aragorn. "I'm called Strider," answered Aragorn. I came out of the north. I am hunting orcs." I'm betting he was multi-class warden captain, though. I'll bet multi-classing is like a baked-in feature of the game. You're not meant to go to level 10 in one class. No, that's not true, because you have level 10 abilities. Maybe you can only go to level 10 in one class, and then any levels you gain beyond that, you're getting a different class. Okay, crafts. So they can be acquired by any adventurer from any calling, but they are the special domain of scholars. There's beastcraft, handcraft, leechcraft would be healing, runecraft can read and write inscriptions, spend a craft slot to inscribe runes of power on a non-magical item of your choice. There's songcraft, speechcraft, weaponcraft, woodcraft. All right, this makes a little more sense. So over the course of gaining levels, you may gain one or more of these crafts, but the scholar gets a bunch of them. Like the scholar is your skill monkey in terms of these crafts. And this is giving you like options to like songcraft. Till the end of your next turn, whenever a target makes an attack roll or saving throw, target rolls a d4. So you're casting Bane on a target. So we're simulating spell effects in a game that's not going to have spell casting, is what we're doing here. More than one calling. Yes, yes, yes. This is multi-classing. Okay, I can skip that. So beyond 10th level, they're designed to represent the gritty heroism of the twilight of the Third Age. Gone is the glory of the Elder Days, and the deeds of the elves of Beleriand and the first Eldane are just dim memories. The total character level of player heroes cannot exceed 10th. And then beyond that, you would just choose some stuff. If you've reached 10th level, you can continue accumulating experience points. Choose one of these features for every 10,000 experience points beyond 64k. All right, so you're just getting a little, like, incrementally stronger instead of gaining new class features and stuff. Equipment. We're codifying coinage. A gold is 10 silver, a silver is 10 copper. There's no Electrum in Middle-earth. Thank the Lord. Starting gear and wealth. That's fine. Okay, we've got adventuring gear tables. Oh, your standard of living is different based on what culture you're in. Elves and rangers live frugally. Hobbits and the men of Bree have common. The bardings and dwarves are prosperous, yes, because the Lonely Mountain has been conquered and Smog has been run out. Adventuring gear. I'm just looking for anything that I don't recognize from the standard 5e table. It all looks to be in order here. You got rations. You got cram rations. Out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, that's all. This is all fine. Leather. Okay. I like this. I like this a lot. I wish 5e had more of this, where you can just kind of see the difference between a sword, a long sword. We have a short sword here. I don't see one. Martial weapon, sword, long sword, short sword. So a sword is finesse and versatile. Short sword is finesse and light. Long sword is heavy and versatile. Okay, I buy it. I'm down. You've got a great bow. Simple range weapon is a standard bow. Okay, that's all fine. Ooh, any kind of tools I don't recognize? You got brewer supplies, calligrapher, carpenter, card. Yeah, this all looks the same. Glass blowers tools. Cool. Gaming sets. You can buy a chess set. Darts. Musical instruments. Clarinet, drum, fiddle, flute, harp, horn, trumpet, viol. Other tools. A pipe. Oh, a pipe has special rules. Herbalism kit. Proficient with herbalism kit during the fellowship phase, you can collect medicinal plants and use them to create a number of herbal remedies equal to your proficiency bonus, or twice as much if a feature lets you add double your proficiency bonus with herbalism kit. So scholars can make extra use of an herbalism kit. I also think there was another subclass we saw that could do that. The messenger, maybe. Pipes are made of clay and wood and used for inhaling the smoke of burning leaves of pipe weed. Here we go. Yeah, my man knows what's up. A character that has proficiency with a pipe. You have to be proficient to smoke. Oh, you can blow smoke rings. Smoking a pipe can aid you in efforts of introspection and in friendly chatting with the fellow practitioners of the art. Spend one use of pipe weed and at least 1 hour smoking your pipe to gain inspiration. You cannot use a pipe again in this way until you finish a long rest. And we've got cram rations, made by bardings for long journeys. Okay. Hobbit ponies and full-size horses. Sure. Rewards and virtues. So rewards are like magic items we get when we level up, and virtues are like feats. So here's an example of rewards we get here. Close-fitting armor. Any critical hit against you becomes a normal hit. So these are magic items. This is adamantine armor. That's crazy. So I could just never critical hit this guy, ever? Oof. Cunning make armor. Less cumbersome. Half the normal weights. If it normally imposes disadvantage, this version doesn't. Fell weapon, grievous weapon, keen weapon, reinforced shield. We have a whole set for named weapons here. Okay. All right, so yeah, these are just kind of standard magic items that you can get. Characters first choose a reward when we reach 3rd level, and then again at 5th, 7th, and 9th. So if you go all the way to 10 level, you're going to have 4 of these, and there's only 6 to choose from? Really? All upgrades can be applied only once to the same item. Oh, you're upgrading a particular item, I guess. So you can have a weapon that gains keen, fell, and grievous. Like your sword can just be awesome at the end. Yeah, these are feats. Okay, virtues are feats. We are codifying feats as being like an important part of the game and not just like an optional thing for some characters or for people who play humans at level 1. Got it. And then we've got cultural feats that you pick depending on your culture. Virtues of the Bardings. Dwarf friend. You can't be a dwarf friend unless you're a barding. Virtues of the dwarves. Choose any combination of 3 skills or tools you're proficient with. When you make an ability check that uses one of the chosen proficiencies, you can obtain a magical success. So we're calling those kind of successes magical successes because we can't model magic in this world as like magical effects and spellcasting like you would in D&D. It wouldn't work in Middle-earth. Magic is much more subtle in Middle-earth most of the time. I mean, sometimes, yeah, Gandalf makes his staff glow, and that's crazy. So I like this. If you have like a bit of magical training as a dwarf, if you like have fragments of the old spells, you're not casting spells, you're not creating fireballs, but you can expend this to get a magical success, which to an untrained eye might just look mundane. Virtues of the elves we can skip because elves are terrible. Virtues of the hobbits, art of disappearing. Brave at a pinch, I love it. Increase in ability score. Whenever a hostile creature or harmful effect imposes a condition on you, you suffer 1 or more levels of exhaustion, or you drop to half or less of your maximum hit points, you gain inspiration. This game then codifies when and how you get inspiration, is what I'm getting from this. Whereas 5th edition D&D is just saying, hey, you give it out whenever you think you should. Like if the player does something cool, and give inspiration. This is saying you have inspiration when you earn it by doing this thing. So most player builds are going to have a way to gain inspiration in maybe multiple ways. I like it. Very happy with that. In fact, if you've seen my 5th edition table, you know that I've removed inspiration and replaced it with a system that has mechanics that I don't have to be the arbitrator of. Virtues of the Men of Bree. The art of smoking. Oh, man, we're going hard on the smoking here. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make with pipes. So most of these are like increase in ability score and get like a cool little thing, which is cool. This one gives you a pony. There's Bill the pony. We love Bill. And virtues of the Rangers of the North. So royalty revealed. Yeah, because Aragorn was the king. All right, adventuring phases. So this will be like if you're out in the wilds or if you're in a dungeon or like this guy's chasing you. No, that's an elf. It's like if these guys are, well, if this guy's chasing you, you're in the shadow. You're an orc. You're on the run. All right, let's see here. The largest part of gameplay is made up of a series of adventuring phases. Ooh, is this Boromir? Covered in arrows? Oh, damn, dude. Look at him go. During the adventuring phase, it is the job of the lore master to challenge the players, putting them in difficult circumstances, setting fiendish riddles, confronting them with formidable opponents. So, at the Battle of Amon Hen, the orcs caught up with the Fellowship. That would be an adventuring phase because they've traveled out of Lorien. They've made it to the falls or to the area around the falls. The orcs ambush them, and then the adventuring party decides like the Fellowship needs to split. At that point, Boromir has failed some number of his shadow saving throws, and the corruption is starting to seep in. The Fellowship breaks. That's all an adventuring phase. And then that's followed up immediately by a second adventuring phase for like Sam and Frodo going off across the river. Merry and Pippin are in an adventuring phase because of their prisoners of orcs. So adventuring phase and what's the other one called? Fellowship phase. They don't have to follow each other. You're not alternating back and forth necessarily. You can do multiple adventuring phases back to back. All right, that makes sense to me now. You only enter a Fellowship phase when you're in a place of safety and comfort and you can afford some downtime. Cool. We shall have a council as soon as you are well enough. Okay. Social encounters are councils. At the beginning of a council, the player should focus on a goal and choose the course of action accordingly. I would typically not run role-playing encounters with mechanics like this, but I appreciate when games have mechanics like this for role-playing encounters, because newcomers to the hobby don't always know what role-playing is, and maybe they're not always comfortable with it. Like, it feels weird when you're role-playing the first couple times you do it, right? Until you kind of get into it some more. So, the issue I always have with mechanics like this, like, what are they asking me to actually do? You're going to have an introduction. The player hero presents a spokesperson chosen among the player heroes presents the company. They make a intimidation or persuasion check. Or what? If the charisma check fails by 5 or more, all player heroes have disadvantage on their ability checks during the interaction phase. So if you don't make a good first impression, Elrond's he's going to roll his eyes, not going to listen to you. All right. Set required successes. And it's saying the charisma check can be intimidation, persuasion, or deception, depending on who the council is. Like, you would want to use intimidation if you're, like, counseling with Theoden and Grima Wormtongue is, like, whispering in his ear. You want to, like, project your strength of arms to get them to listen. Persuasion would be more like at the Council of Elrond, where everybody wants to, like, jockey for position, and like Boromir gave the speech about how the men of Gondor, like, he's representing them. And then deception would be like, you don't want to reveal yourself. That would be a social encounter, like Aragorn meeting the hobbits at the Prancing Pony and not wanting to reveal too much about himself. So set required successes. What are they asking for? What kind of help are they hoping to get? How they intend to get it. So the players say, this is what we want to get out of this council. We set the difficulty, a reasonable request, is one where the encountered folk do not lose anything by helping the player heroes. So, okay, so you go to the Prancing Pony and you negotiate a few nights' rest and you pay for your stay. That would be a social encounter where it's a general success required. As long as you like pass this introduction check, you're probably good. A bold request corresponds to a goal that is profiting the company more than it does the people encountered. So this would be you roll up in Rivendell and you're like, hey, we need magic cloaks and strong horses to get us south. You have to convince Elrond to give up some material to you. And then an outrageous request. The player heroes are asking the encountered folk to do something that is dangerous or has scarce or no possibilities of reward. Okay, so this would be more like Bilbo Baggins is trying to... Was it Thranduin was the representative of the elves that Bilbo was trying to tell him, like, hey, don't go to war with Thorin just because he's being a jerk. Like, yeah, he's holed up in the mountain and has all the gold and isn't going to share, but, like, please don't be mean to him. Like, Thranduil has no reason to listen to that. It's an outrageous request, and Bilbo really should have known better. Then there's the interaction. We set a DC based on whether they're reluctant, open, or friendly. There's a list of a bunch of skills that can be used, and then we determine... Oh, we grant experience points based on success. The company reaches the number of successful ability checks required. Here we go, awarding effective role-playing. Should a good die roll be considered more important than a clever decision by a player? The right answer is to give both equal weight. Yes, thank you for printing this box in your book. This is exactly what I wanted to see. When I do social encounters at my table, I prefer to do them completely by role-playing, and I will only ask for a check if the player is kind of stepping outside of the bonds of what I feel would be a standard request, right? Any action that has possibility of failure, players during a council describe their conduct, and then the appropriate ability check is made to evaluate the results. If the delivered speech touches topics that are relevant to the company's goal and that are deemed important by the audience, the player hero gains advantage on the ability check. So, if you're role-playing well and you're not pissing off your audience, roll these checks at advantage. That's a really elegant way to do this and still keep the mechanics in the game. Because here's what happens. When you have social encounters based on die rolls and you have players that are skilled role players, they often feel robbed because they show up to the table, they role play the scene, they speak in character, they make a good case, and then you're like, all right, make your persuasion check, and they roll a 3. Well, shoot. And then you have to model that. So this is saying go both ways. This is how to do both. And what I wish this said, though, is like if the players are skilled role players and they're comfortable role playing their characters, you can forego the checks and just play the scene naturally, keeping in mind the disposition of the NPCs and like what the players are asking for and all. So this whole council thing just sounds like rules for role playing for tables that need them, and I probably wouldn't use a lot of these. Failure or success with woe. A player fails a check, can choose to simply fail and be refused what they asked for, or, are we doing it? Are we going fail forward? Oh no. They can opt to achieve their stated goal, but at a steeper price. That's success at a cost, which is a form of fail forward. For example, I'm going to have to do a video on this channel one day. I'm going to have to just sit and talk into the microphone for an hour about why I don't like fail forward and success at a cost as a panacea for solving role-playing problems. Like, I think it's absolutely fine to just let players fail, and then the consequences of failure become the next step of the game, rather than always fail forward. Like in Household, which we just ran, that says, like in the text, printed in ink, like players really should always fail forward. I like fail forward as a sometimes food. It's a cookie. It's not a... There's not really an all-the-time food, is there? Anyway, this is saying when a player fails, the player gets to decide whether, okay, we didn't get what we wanted, the council was a bust, or we fail forward. But there's another level beyond that. There's disaster. Player heroes cannot opt to turn a failure into a success with woe. So this is explicitly saying there will be cases where you do not fail forward. Thank you. Please, more games say that. There's some situations where fail forward just doesn't make sense. And it's a very common trope nowadays to like, you should always have the players fail forward. No, sometimes it's okay. Just let them fail. If you walk into Thranduil's hall and you like call him ugly and then like step on his feet and then like pee all over his floor, like there's no fail forward from there. You're just getting thrown into the river, right? Okay, so we've only got 1 or 2 pages about social I think this is fine. These mechanics are fine. I think I would give them a test run. I would try them out. What's giving me pause is you're supposed to reward XP for them. And these XP rewards are not scaling for level. So if you have a reluctant party and you make an outrageous request, you're getting 1,800 experience. Why do we have numbers in... Oh, numbers in brackets are rewards for success with woe. All right, so you get a little bit. But like it's only worth 100 experience. It's not going to be much after a couple experience levels. This needs to scale based on your level, I think. Because otherwise what we're saying is that if you're a low-level nobody, your experience rewards are going to be great for councils, but after you gain a few experience levels, these rewards are going to be negligible. Like 200 experience... Like this open, bold crossroads here, this suggests Council of Elrond to me. Like Elrond is open to what you have to say, and you're making bold requests of him. We should use this as a weapon. We should use this gift. But 200 experience points, like at level 1, that's a lot. Assuming this uses the same experience chart as 5e, and I don't have any reason to believe it doesn't, that gets you almost all the way to level 2. But after a couple levels at 200 experience, that's like barely one encounter's worth of experience, if that. So this doesn't scale based on level, which has the side effect of being like these social encounters are less important as the game advances and the players become more powerful. Maybe what this is modeling is that it's harder for low-level characters to navigate these councils because higher-level characters will have some renown. Middle-earth is This is a setting where like everybody knows everybody. Like everybody knows Strider the Ranger by reputation, right? So maybe that's what this is modeling. Like maybe Strider gets less value from his council at the Prancing Pony than the Hobbits do because the Hobbits are much lower level. The Hobbits have much more to learn. Is that what this is modeling? I'm spending a lot of time on this one box. It's time to turn the page here. All right, we've got journey encounters. We have rules for traveling across the map. As obvious as it may seem, the members of a traveling company must know at least approximately where their destination is and how to reach it. Okay? The front end papers contain the player's map. Okay. The rules of journey have been devised to make traveling across the land an its vital component of gameplay, but they're not meant to be used every time the company is on the road. Good. They should rarely be used when heroes are on their way back home. The main effects of adventuring on the player heroes are not very relevant if the members of the company are headed for a safe haven where they can rest without problems, or if they are traveling without any concern for the amount of time it will take them to make the trip. Players may profit from a closing act when they reach their destination. Okay, so this is just saying you don't have to use the journey rules every time you go on a journey. So if you go on a journey roll, you need a guide, a hunter, a lookout, and a scout. So you set the journey path, you make your pathfinding checks, you end the journey. So they actually want you to use the map. Oh, look at this. So we're going to have this page as a character sheet. Let's just flip to the back and take a look at the character sheets then. Oh, here we go. Here's your journey map right here on the back cover of the book. Set journey path, make pathfinding checks, end the journey, make a fatigue saving throw. And they even tell you what... Okay, so journeying is a hex crawl then. We've got a hex map. Each hex has a color. Some areas have numbers, which make them more perilous. The Barrow Downs are here. We've got Troll Shaws over here. Oh, we're not even... This isn't even all... This is just Eriador. Like, I thought these were the mountains bordering Mordor. No, these are the mountains bordering Rohan. So this is the Pass of Caradhras here. Or is that up here? Yeah, Caradhras must be up here because Rivendell's over. Okay. Let's look at the character sheets then. Yeah, here's your journey log here. So the players are going to keep track on their own little map. You list the roles and ability checks they need to make, which is what I would do in a hex crawl. In a hex crawl, I would be like, all right, who's your lookout, who's your scout, who's your hunter or forager or whatever. And then D&D players would be like, we don't need hunters and foragers. We have Goodberry. There's no resource management in D&D at all because we have Goodberry and infinite ammo and we get our spell charges back every time we blink. I'm not salty, you're salty. And then we have the character sheet. Okay. Fantastic. So I know what this is now. I might use these rules in an actual D&D hex crawl. If I like these rules, I could adapt this to a 5th edition game. 5th edition, I don't know of a 5th edition book that has good like hex crawl rules in them. Okay, so you're going to make pathfinding checks. To determine whether you're on the right path, whether you've... So events are going to be encounters that happen along the way. I'm not sure what they mean by events. Are events just encounters? Are we going to get examples of events? Because it says here, like, scout rolled for a shortcut, got a success, places the event 2 hexes away. Hunter made his roll. The event was a mishap, got a failure. This doesn't make sense to me. As soon as the company leaves, the guide makes a first pathfinding check. Oh, so the guide's doing this particular check. The hunter hasn't made a check yet. Okay, we're going to have to look. So at the end of a journey, you'll make a fatigue saving throw. Or suffer exhaustion. Perilous areas. The company stops at a perilous area as soon as it enters. They must face a number of events equal to its peril rating. Once all events have been resolved. I've been playing a lot of World of Horror, which is a video game where you go on like an adventure and you have some number of arbitrary events you have to clear. And then the adventure clears. Or they call them mysteries. The mystery clears. I wonder if we're going in that direction here. So you can go on a forced march for increased fatigue. You get experience rewards. If you took significant risks along the path. Okay. Event resolution. Oh, here we got experience rewards right here. When crossing a perilous area, count a number of hexes equal to the peril rating of the area. So you only get experience if you're crossing a perilous area. Okay. Journeys can be long but uneventful or made exciting by many unexpected occurrences. The lore master selects all who will face a journey event by rolling a d3 and using the event table below. How many times do I do this? Here's the journey events table. And what happens? Okay, so we're just mechanically modeling journeys. We're not. So when I do a hex crawl, I'll have checks like this, like your scout makes a check, your lookout makes a check, and then I'll have a table of like what happens if they succeed or fail. But I'll also have like a random encounter table at like what happens, like what do you find, and then when I hit an encounter, I'll zoom in from the hex crawl into what this game calls like a standard adventuring phase. Then resolve. Okay, so this is just all mechanic stuff. This describing journey events. So we're not necessarily like role playing through these. We're not necessarily treating these like monster encounters necessarily. We're just kind of describing them and moving on. Fellowship phases. Okay, so we're in downtime now. Where are we? Are we in Lake Town here? Set the duration. Choose a destination. Spiritual recovery, choose undertakings. Fellowship phase usually covers a longer period of time than the average adventuring phase. So, Frodo was in an adventuring phase at Weathertop. He gets stabbed by the Nazgul. They bring him to Rivendell. He's in the adventuring phase until he arrives in Rivendell. And then his recovery in Rivendell was this fellowship phase. And then the fellowship phase ended before the council, because the council would have taken place during councils are resolved during adventuring phases. And then sometime after the council, I guess you go into a second fellowship phase, and then the fellowship leaves and begins their next adventuring phase, which begins with a journey to Caradhras. Okay. So we know how long we're taking, we know where we're going. Spiritual recovery. If the adventuring phase resulted in what can be considered a positive outcome in the fight against encroaching shadow, all members of the company get to remove a number of shadow points. So, if you're being corrupted, you can remove those points if your adventuring phase had a good outcome. Let me think about that for a second. So, Frodo's recovery in Rivendell did him spiritual good because he was in a safe and comfortable place. Is that what this is saying? Or is this saying more like the ambush at Amon Hen was a bad outcome for an adventuring phase? Well, they didn't have a fellowship phase after that. The fellowship broke. Undertakings are time-consuming endeavors that players can accomplish exclusively during a lengthy stop like an adventuring phase. So they can craft items, do downtime actions. Once every 3 fellowship phases, winter comes, and with it the end of the current year. Normally, the company spends the entire cold season in a single prolonged fellowship phase. Life in the wild is unforgiving adventure. Okay, so we spend winters holed up somewhere. The company disbands temporarily on occasion of the Yule festivities. Each player hero takes the chance to return home and enjoy some time among family and folk. Fair? Heal Scars. Oh, Heal Scars is an undertaking. We should probably look at that. Undertakings. Gather rumors, heal scars, which you can do during Yule. Meet with your patron. That's like when Thorin sat down with Gandalf, I suppose. Ponder storied and figured maps. Raise an heir happens during Yule. Recount a story. Oh, okay. Player heroes give a personal account of an event they took part in, describing the episode to members of their own folk in a public place or event, or recording it in a book. So this is what Bilbo was doing when he wrote There and Back Again. And this helps you. This is a respec. This is interesting. This is a respec thing. So during downtime, you can respec your character somewhat by kind of remembering the tale differently. Replace one of your distinctive features with a new one. Choosing a quality that you displayed in the narrative episode. Replace one of your tool proficiencies with another. If you have expertise, you can choose this. Okay, so we're respecing a little bit. During the adventuring phase, the player heroes may sing a song and rouse themselves to pursue their goals with renewed strength of purpose. Oh, you're going to maintain a song list. Strengthen fellowship, study magic items, write a song. Here we go. A player hero creates a short narrative poem particularly appropriate to narrate heroic deeds meant to be recited or sung at gatherings. Aw, the main character of my novel does this in the first book. Song of Victory is a song of combat, and then a walking song. Oh, that's it. We're done. We're done with the fellowship phase. All right, so it's just downtime actions. We're not actually. I've played storytelling games that have like a DM phase and a player's phase, and I kind of don't like when games do that. The Lore Master. Well, that's me. Let's find out. Or that's the subclass. Oh, wait a minute. No, Lore Master, all one word. That's me. Lore Master, the subclass of Scholar. That's hyphenated. He's the lore hyphen master. You're the director, you're the referee, you're the narrator. Got it. Thank you. Understood. Canon and the lore master. So this is, I'm not going to read all this right now, but I'm going to assume what this says is don't sweat the canon too much. Like, it's very impressive that you read through the Silmarillion. It's not necessary that you enforce every page of the Silmarillion at the table. All right, so this is Adventuring in Middle-earth. When? So you want to know your season in the current year. Where are you in Eriador? What's going on? Why are the players doing it? And who is there? Okay, so this is just DM helpful, like helpful DM stuff. Pay tribute to the source material at the very beginning. Ooh, I do want to read this. This is a quick and easy way to establish the right atmosphere, showing players they really are in Middle-earth now. This will be so important to me. I love my players at both of my tables that I play at, but it would be very hard for me if I started running this game and the players like weren't in the proper headspace, right? Like, I would want to keep it thematic. Yeah, so I would definitely want to read through this and make sure that, like, set the tone of the game. Tone is so important when you're playing a specific setting like this. A lot of D&D tables, I don't think worry about tone that much because kind of by default it's a kitchen sink situation, right? Like Forgotten Realms is just like everything D&D is, and I don't think any of the Forgotten Realms material talks about how the game is supposed to feel or what themes you're supposed to explore. But in Middle-earth, those would be first and foremost, so you'd want to do that. Oh, we have a stat block. Uh-oh. We have our first stat block of a non-player character of Barnabas Butterbur. He's a man of Bree. So we're only giving him social stats. So he's not a combat character. So that's normally when I do a stat block for a non-combat character, I'll do name, alignment, ideal, flaw. That's typically what I'll do. Okay, we know he's not, so it's not really a stat block as such. I mean, it is, but it's an NPC stat block, so you're not really supposed to fight this guy. Treasure. Giving out treasure. Okay, the company should find a maximum of 2 hordes during the same adventuring phase. A lesser horde and a greater one, or a single massive horde. Oh, marvelous, not massive, sorry. What are we finding in what's in a horde? A lesser horde has a value of 9 gold, a greater has a value of 16, a marvelous is a value of 26. And you roll for magical treasure, you'll find... Oh, we create precious objects. And it gives some... Oh, the Arkenstone is a possible extraordinary object. A wonderful, multifaceted great white gem called the Heart of the Mountain, an heirloom of the kings and the House of Durin. Great. And you want to know what it is, what it's made of, and who made it. Treasure index. Let me see if I can grok what this is saying here. Finding a magic ring or famous sword in Lord of the Rings is not simply a matter of stumbling upon an exotic object. There's more to chance than coincidence in Middle-earth. So what we're saying here is Bilbo didn't happen upon the One Ring. The One Ring wanted to be found. Is that what? Yeah, fate and predestination. And we got artwork of Bilbo with the ring here. So what we're saying is some characters are going to be fated to come into possession of certain marvelous artifacts. When the lore master is compiling the treasure index, some time should be dedicated to considering the objective of an item in the context of the campaign being played. I'm going to need examples of some of these items. So some of these magic items are giving blessings, which I'm assuming are advantage on skill checks here. We have whole pages for designing famous weapons and armor, which as you should. Seeking a lore master, hyphenated, so you know it's the scholar character. Seeking, you don't just look at the DM in that case. I'm seeking a lore master. Where's he at? He's always there's on the table eating Doritos. Okay, so we've got like properties that we're attacking to weapons or armor here, looks like. I thought we already saw those. Cursed items. Uh-oh. Cursed precious objects. It is, of course, possible to lay a curse upon a heap of gold or a chest of precious gems, but usually that type of treasure just has an ill feeling about it, and a character may struggle to sell it. Yeah, there's your boy. There he is. Curse of weakness. Dark and hunted, ill luck, ill omen, malice, owned. The item is owned or was created by another creature, much as the ring was owned by Sauron. And then it gives an example of all of this discovering the One Ring. Bilbo's discovery of the One Ring is a shining example of predestination. Bilbo was meant to find the ring and then meant to pass it to Frodo. But how can the ruling ring of Sauron be created under the magic treasure table? It cannot. What this is saying is your players are not going to find the One Ring. It doesn't work that way. Fair enough. The Shadow. All right, Shadow points. You make saving throws against Shadow when? When do you do that? Two new conditions. Oh, okay. You can be miserable or anguished. Oof, that's rough, dude. All right, so if you're miserable, decreases the fellowship rating of the company by 1. A miserable character's roll is a failure on a 1 or a 2, regardless on any ability check, attack roll, or saving throw. That's rough. Oh, I like that. I might put that in my D&D game. You're miserable, and then if you're anguished, it means you're already miserable, and on top of that, you have a disadvantage on all ability checks, attack roll. That's a bit too far. You don't want to do that. This I like. This I like a lot. And I'm already thinking of all the ways I can incorporate that into my D&D game. This is a step too far, but I think what it's meant to do is if you're an adventurer, if you're a player hero in this game, you become miserable at a time, right? Like you've been marching through the pass of Caradhras and then you find it blocked and you've got to turn around and walk all the way back down just because Frodo said so. And now you're miserable. Boromir was miserable, and then the Shadow used that to get in. Sources of Shadow. Okay, this is what I was... So how do players accumulate Shadow points? That's what I was curious about. They gain Shadow in many ways. Dread. So I call for a saving throw against Dread, which is a charisma saving throw. Here we go. Serious or mortal accident. So Frodo gets stabbed on Weathertop, or Merry and Pippin watches Boromir die from orc arrows. They fail their saving throw, they gain a shadow point. gruesome killing or orc work, or experiencing slavery. So Merry and Pippin are enslaved by the dwarves. They're tied up, they're bound, they're dragged off into the wilds. They fail another charisma save, they gain 2 shadow points. I feel like Merry and Pippin never once failed one of these saving throws, right? Like your boy looks into the Palantir. Maybe like touching a Palantir automatically gives you a shadow point. I don't know. Experiencing torture or being haunted by a wight. So Frodo definitely failed this one a couple times. Experiencing, here it says right here, experiencing directly the power of the enemy, seeing the mustering of a shadow army, or seeing the eye in a Palantir. So Pippin grabs the Palantir and sees the eye. He botches that roll, right? Later, Aragorn takes it. Like I think they gave rules here for hardening your will. Aragorn knew to do this, hardened his will. He passed that save. That's what happened there. Love it. Greed, misdeeds. So if you threaten or lie, heedless cruelty is 1 shadow point. Murder, willingly taking actions in service of the enemy, is 4 points plus a shadow scar. It's important to note that merely attempting to do something despicable is a misdeed. Yes, it is. Thank Christ you published that in this book. Thank you so much. It's not enough. I don't know how many times over the years I was like, you're doing something evil right now. You're like a good aligned character. Yeah, but I didn't actually succeed at doing it. I only tried, then I failed. No, intent to do evil is evil. I'm so happy they published that here. All right. It's possible to commit a misdeed unknowingly. For example, attacking someone considered to be guilty of a heinous crime, but later turns out to be innocent. That's interesting. That makes sense, though, because you are unwittingly doing the actions of the enemy in that case. Like, Boromir didn't know he was being corrupted when he tried to seize the ring from Frodo. He thought he was being virtuous. He thought he was acting in his own best interest. It's only after he alienated Frodo that he realized what he had done. He realized he had committed a misdeed even though he didn't intend to do it. That's what this is codifying here. And of course, sorcery. Oh, we've got rules for madness here. Player heroes whose shadow score reaches the full value of their wisdom score become anguished. When they reach that point, they get rid of shadow in only one way, by playing out a bout of madness. Boromir fills up his shadow meter. His bout of madness is betrayal and lust, an irresistible desire for the ring, and try to take it overt. So Boromir reached this stage, could not shed his shadow points. He's miserable. He's anguished. He plays out this bout of madness. He betrays Frodo, and that causes him to lose his shadow points. They are no longer anguished. They remove their current shadow points, but they advance 1 step along their shadow path. So Boromir didn't reach that point. He didn't become fully corrupted by the enemy. He went to that point, realized he considered a misdeed. His bout of madness caused him to shed his shadow points, and then he went and heroically sacrificed himself to try to save Merry and Pippin. Shadow paths. Okay, what are we talking about here? When men, hobbits, or dwarves fall under the shadow, they succumb to madness. More often than not, this results sooner or later in their death, as they threaten others to the extent that they end up being killed or starved to death in some solitary place. So Smeagol, Denethor, Grima Wormtongue, they're lost to madness. When the burden of the shadow overpowers elves, they seek to leave Middle-earth as soon as possible, sail for the uttermost west, and be healed of the sadness and misery of this world. Either way, if a character becomes lost to madness, they disappear from the game. And this is why. And your shadow path, depending on what happens to it. Like, let's take Thorin Oakenshield, who succumbed to dragon sickness. So his first bout of madness was grasping. And then he went to mistrustful. He started being paranoid about his allies. Then he went to deceitful because he went back on his word about how he would assist. Like he promised the sun and moon to the men of Lake Town, and then after he conquered the Lonely Mountain, said he would give them nothing. He didn't quite make it to thieving. He didn't quite get that far. Who did? Who did go all the way down? Idle, forgetful, uncaring, cowardly. I don't know that I know anybody who follows that. Here we go. Path of despair. So Denethor started out troubling, went to wavering, went to guilt-ridden, and then at the end he was consumed by fear. So that makes sense to me. Lore of Secrets might describe Saruman, right? Haughty, scornful, then he goes to scheming, and then eventually traitorous. All right. I think I understand this. Who said this? I feel I need a holiday, a very long holiday, as I have told you before. Probably a permanent holiday. I don't expect I shall return. Was that Bilbo who said that? This might be modeling Bilbo's wandering madness. He was idle for many years at Bag End. He becomes forgetful and uncaring. I would say that's true. And then at the end, he becomes how are we describing cowardly? You care only for your own safety under any circumstance and will go to any lengths to save yourself when a threat arises. I don't know that Bilbo made it that far, but he did. Yeah, this wandering madness did take him. Are we going to get monster stat blocks? Here we go. Evil men. We've got Southern Raider, Southerner Champion. We've got some ruffians. We got some orcs. They're a great orc chief. Do we have challenge ratings? We do have challenge ratings here. So we've got stats. We don't have any kind of alignment. I was expecting some sort of alignment. Does it say we have shadow points at all? I don't think so. Because a ruffian necessarily would not be as in tune with the enemy as an orc chieftain would. So we've got our actions here. There's a bodyguard, there's an archer, there's lots of different kinds of orcs. There's orcs in the north. We got trolls happening. Challenge 3, challenge 4, challenge 5. Are these going to be like the trolls we fought in Moria? Are these like CR5 trolls? There's the undead, wights and wraiths. Are we going to have Nazgul? There's marsh dwellers. Yeah, here we go. The Nazgul, the 9. Do we actually have stat blots for Nazgul? We don't. I guess the idea here is if you encounter a Nazgul, you're not winning that fight. Okay, so wraiths are not Nazgul. Wraiths are a terrible illness spread by Nazgul. I don't think we're fighting Nazgul in this game. We've got Wolves of the Wild. Cool. Nameless Things of the Third Age. So this would be like the thing that lives in the waters outside of the gates of Moria. And they're kind of, we got a whole page here. So would Shelob have like been generated from this table? We're giving it a challenge rating and whatnot. Oh, this is some dwarf fortress level of generation. So we're generating a bespoke, unique monster. So yeah, I would say Shelob would fall on this table. Yeah, we got spider-like. We have an attack form here. And then special trait. So we can generate one, but you can also just kind of take one. You can also just put this together however you need. Fair enough. I wish the 5e Monster Manual did a better job of that. Like saying you can cobble together stat blocks from like lists like this. It's not quite that good. The rules concerning the Eye of Mordor are suitable to introduce later in the game, when the company's already been playing for a few years of game time. So what does the eye see? Is that what we're tracking here? It's a rating measuring the level of attention the enemy reserves for the company and player heroes. So how often is Sauron looking at you? So Aragorn glares into the Palantir to max this out, and then masses his armies outside of the Black Gate to draw Sauron's attention. Is that what we're looking at? If the company only has hobbits or men, eye awareness is 0, so he doesn't notice Frodo and Sam sneaking around at all. Once there's dwarves involved, he starts to take notice. If the rangers and elves are involved, he gets more in there. So what good does this do? What does the eye awareness do? Gains 1 or more shadow points. Increase the eye awareness level by an equal amount. Okay, so once you start gaining shadow points, that awareness goes up even more. The eye awareness level of a company grows session after session. Hunt threshold of a company is determined by the region where the heroes are located, but what does it actually do? A company is revealed to the enemy when the eye awareness score of the company matches or exceeds the current hunt threshold. And then the revelation here. So this is the moment the company understands the eye is watching them. I guess? Or is this the outcome of a revelation episode? One enemy type that will be faced in combat next gains the special trait Reckless Hate. So this is just like a difficulty modifier to make encounters more difficult. I suppose. So this is the okay. So we're in the this is going to be world building stuff. I would have to read through this, but a lot of this is probably stuff I either already know. So we have map of the Shire, the Brandywine River. I don't like when we publish stat blocks in the middle of. I like all the stat blocks to be in the back of the book. One thing 5e really does in published material, if you see a name or a creature published in bold, that's your note that like this stat block exists either in the back of the book or in the monster manual. So we have a table to see what's happening at the Prancing Pony when you visit. I would want to go to the Prancing Pony. If I was going to run this game, you would all go to the Prancing Pony for sure. We're just introducing events like Goblin Raids. We're introducing little characters to use in each section of the world. The Great East Road. Oh, these like we have a random encounter table on the East Road. Like this is what you find. Highway robbers, goblin scouts. Cool, cool. Okay, now we're into the Barrow Downs and the South Downs. Here's the White King, if you want to introduce the White King. Howling Hollows, we've got more encounter tables. I'm glad we have encounter tables in here, but here's Weathertop. Angmar, the Trollshaws. We've gone south along the coast to Lindon here, which is a setting we don't really see in Lord of the Rings or in The Hobbit. Which are the blue? Are these all? This is all the Blue Mountains. Okay, this is all the Blue Mountains. So this is where, I believe this is where Thorin brought his people when they went into exile after Smaug took the Lonely Mountain. Oh, is that our lot? That's all we're doing? Yeah, because we're not traveling beyond the mist. So the book doesn't. We're not adventuring in the Misty Mountains. We're not adventuring in the Mirkwood. We're not adventuring in Mordor. We're not going into Rohan or Gondor. Yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like if I bought this game because I'm excited to adventure in like the cool movies I saw, right? But virtually none of the movie locations are covered by this book. I understand how like fans of the Legendarium, people who have read the novels a lot, like the true Tolkien fans, quote unquote, uh, would want to enrich this part of the world, Lindon, Arnor, Eriador. Like a considerable amount of this map is further north than we ever go in Lord of the Rings up in here. There's Farnor and Angmar. I get the allure of like wanting to adventure in areas that aren't covered by the books. And I think I could run a campaign on this map just fine. But I feel like a lot of people who purchase this book are going to be like, wait, I can't go to Gondor? We can't go to Rohan? We don't have any rules for meeting like the Riders of Rohan? I don't think there's anything in here so far about traveling underground. Like we're not going to check out Khazad-dûm or anything. So there's like a hole in the setting material that I could fill because I'm familiar with Middle Earth. I've lived there and I know where to look and like what to do. And like if I could use this material, these mechanics to run a game in the Second Age, no problem. But yeah, we're kind of doing a disservice to DMs. I'm sorry, lore masters who. Like maybe they just saw the films for the first time and it really inspired them and they went and bought this game and they can't incorporate the events of the films because we're off the map at that point. And then we're into appendices. So we've got information on patrons. Good old Bilbo. He's a we don't have a stat block for Bilbo for Bilbo. We don't know what level of burglar he made it to. Cured on this shipwright, Gandalf the Grey, an adventurer and a wizard. Language is all. Yep, that checks out. Who's Gilraine the Fair? After a few years, Gilraine took leave of Elrond and returned to her own people in Eriadoc and lived alone. The mother of Aragorn. Okay, I reveal myself to be a fake fan because I did not know who Aragorn's mother was. I'm sorry. So she's an elf. Accorded great respect among the Dunedain of Eriador. So she's like a ranger kind of. Having lost her husband Arathorn to an orc arrow. Yeah, okay, so some of this makes sense. I understand they wanted to have more female characters in positions of power to be patrons, and we can't use Galadriel because Galadriel's off the map. We're not adventuring in that area of the world, so we don't even have a blurb about Lorien. So, I guess if you're scraping the barrel. Tolkien had many virtues, but writing strong women characters was not one of them. I mean, he's a product of his times, but as a result, there are not a lot of strong women characters in the books. And the ones that we do encounter, like Arwen or Eowyn, I couldn't think of her name. She has like the most killer line in the series, and I couldn't remember her name. They're not really in positions to be patrons at this point in time. In fact, Eowyn might not even be alive at this point in time that we're talking about here. Tom Bombadil and Goldberry. I have to see. I love the artwork. I love the artwork of Bombadil. We didn't put Gold... Oh, there she is. She's in the artwork. Okay, she's in the background. The House of Tom Bombadil. Goldberry can be found anywhere in the course of the Withy Windle, braiding daisies or water lilies or singing to gurgling waters. His mastery seems to be limited to his little land. Okay, that's fair. Just, I don't know that I would want to put Tom Bombadil in my game if I was running this. We've got rules for making landmarks. Cool. Is this such a landmark? The Star of the Mist. What are we looking at here? Or is this an adventure? Oh, this is an adventure. We have like an adventure map here. Cool. We're going to meet Lady Elwyn. She's a fell wraith. We're not going to meet Lady Elwyn. We're going to fight Lady Elwyn. She's only CR1. Strike Fear. Each non-undead creature in Lady Elwyn's choice that is within 60 feet gains 1 shadow point from Dread. So you can just apply shadow points as damage. No, that makes sense because Frodo got stabbed at Weathertop and he had like a shadow scar, is what the game would call it, for the rest of his days. Okay, so we have a little adventure in the back of the book. I like that. And then we've come to the end of the book. So there's our character sheet. There's our shadow score and our shadow scars. We check off if we're miserable or anguished. You mark your shadow path up here. That's interesting. We did have some new skills. We're tracking passive perception. I also like my players to track their passive insight. Otherwise, looks pretty much the same. We have the back of the character sheet here. You put your appearance. This is always a depressing box because most people can't draw. So either they just draw like a stupid stick figure there, or if it's a digital character sheet, they put like an anime character. You could use AI to generate your character now, and a lot of people do. We do that at on my Saturday group. The game masters like to generate AI characters to show us, and he did this one week with a character we met on an airship, and we immediately all went, that's the most punchable face I've ever seen. Did you type in punchable face as your prompt? He didn't, but that character did end up to be the bad guy, so... All right, so fellowship points, that's your communal resource to get rolls and stuff. And then we've got we're tracking our journey, and then we've got the eye, and then we've got the map. And also, if I go back here in the tunnel, oh goodness, we did get, along with this book, in the back of this book actually, came with this beautiful fold-out map, which I always like to see a fold-out map, but I haven't unfolded this one yet. So here we have a map of Eriador. It's gorgeous. And it has little insets on... You got these little insets of places. Of Rivendell, the last bridge. Oh, yeah, I like this a lot. I guess you do have the Misty Mountains. Oh, Lorien's right here on the edge. Just barely not on the map here is Lorien. They should have listed... Like, yeah, you should have listed Galadriel as a possible patron. I guess part of the reason you would want to not do that is because unless you're going to run the game literally during the events of the books or the films, most human characters wouldn't be alive. Right? Like, it was some 60 years between the time Bilbo, maybe more than that, between the time Bilbo brought the One Ring back to the Shire and the beginning of the story. And then more time elapsed, like another decade or so, from like Bilbo's birthday party to when Frodo actually set out. I think. So maybe by not including Rohan and Gondor on this map, you're saying, hey, like, Denethor's not around. Like, he's not alive yet. Although you could just say the Patreon there is whoever was Steward of Gondor at the time. What's on the obverse of this map? Let's take a look. Oh, it's a beautiful map of the Shire in particular. Down here to South Farthing. Here's Hobbiton in the inset in the corner. That's off. It's off the screen. I can't fit the whole map under my camera. Where's Hobbiton on this map? Here's Hobbiton, and then Bag End would be there. If I was a younger man, this would be. I would tape this up to my wall. I'm too old for that kind of nonsense now. I would have to frame this, which would mean I would have to iron out the the folds. As it is, I just have a stack of nicely folded maps that I keep handy. So that's my skim through of the Lord of the Rings role-playing game, going through the book. And now I have a basic contextual understanding of how the game works and what is expected of me and the players and what new mechanics are introduced. So now I would go through and do my cover-to-cover read, probably skipping the world building chapter because I have better materials for world building in Lord of the Rings than what this book can provide, I think. So, if you enjoyed this kind of content, let me know. I could do like skim throughs of other books in the future. As it is, I'm going to end the stream here. Wow, looking at the preview of my stream, you can see the silhouette of my ceiling fan against the glare of the book. It's not a well-lit space that I'm in. I'll be honest. We're not in a well-lit room here. That's going to do it for me. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember that Saved by the Flump is our D&D campaign. We're playing Sundays on this channel here live. So come back then and you can see all of the mistakes that I make over the course of a D&D session. Thanks very much. See you guys next time.